Practicing a scientific lifestyle can improve our well being. So, what exactly is a scientific lifestyle? It's characterized by our curiosity to figure things out. It's an evidence based approach to decision making and problem solving. This means relying on data, research, and experimentation to understand the world around us and make informed decisions. This sounds very technical and not something anyone can do. The fact is that most people are doing scientific experiments on a regular basis and using the results to improve their lives. We don't recognize them as scientific experiments because the word science and experiments create the image of a high school chemistry lab or a science project exhibition or a movie scene with sophisticated instruments in a high tech lab. We don't consider our natural environment, our house or community or workplace, as a lab and our observations and decision makings as part of the scientific method. But in many cases, they are. What is the scientific method? It's a systematic and controlled investigation to test a hypothesis, which is basically an educated guess. We set up an experiment to test our hypothesis, control the input going into the experiment, and we measure the output coming out from the experiment. We make observations, collect data, and analyze the results to decide if our hypothesis was correct or not. That's the scientific method. But that's exactly the same process we use for many of our day to day activities. When we try a new recipe or tweak an existing one, we are conducting an experiment. We test different ingredients, test different cooking temperature, and test different cooking techniques. These are all the different inputs going into the system to see how we can improve the taste of the dish, which is the output. We taste the dish to decide if our hypothesis, which is changing the input will make the dish taste better, was correct or not. Another example is our experimentation with the different hairstyles and skincare products and clothing to find which one works best for us. We observe the results of our experiments, such as how a certain hairstyle or a piece of clothing affects our appearance and comfort, and use this information to make decisions about our preferences and purchasing decisions. Test driving a car is an experiment. Trying a new gadget or an appliance to test its features and capabilities is an experiment. We use the results of these experiments to decide whether to buy the product or to look for alternatives. So, there is a scientist in all of us. We are doing scientific experiments and practicing the scientific methodology through all these examples. We don't classify the examples I've mentioned as scientific experiments, even though they are, because the process is part of our natural way of doing things. But there are areas of decision making where the scientific process doesn't come naturally to us. In those cases, we fall for the avalanche of misinformation around us. The scientist in us stops working when we are flooded with advice coming from every direction unless we are capable of blocking them. We lose the ability to apply the scientific method because there are too many variables and too many experiments for the situation that we are facing. Think about the hundreds of healthcare advice you get from your friends because they heard it on social media or they knew someone who tried it. It could be about a diet or a better way to sleep or things to do when you have a headache. Although most of such advices could be harmless or useless, some could actually be dangerous to your health. So, bring out the scientist in you before you try those advice. Another area where the natural scientist in us stops working is the field of financial investment. Think about the hundreds of stock market investment advice you get. Some of them are from your friends and some are from the so-called experts. Before taking any of that advice, understand one basic thing about stock market. Stock market works because there are many people with different viewpoints on the same investment. When you think buying a stock is a wise decision, someone out there thinks that selling that very same stock is a wise decision. That's why a transaction happens. So, in this era of over information and super specialization, it's all the more important to adapt a scientific lifestyle to improve our well being.